Hello and welcome to the I3 lecture series hosted by the Masters in Digital Photography program at the School of Visual Arts. We are thrilled to have photographer Susan Bank as tonight's guest speaker. Susan attended Barnard College and the University of Edinburgh and became a serious photographer at age 60. Largely self-taught, she participated in workshops with great masters such as Mary Ellen Mark, Graciela Iturbide, David Alan Harvey, and Constantin Manos. Susan's first monograph, Cuba, Campo Adentro, was selected as the best books of 2009 by Foto España and as well by Photo Eye. Her second monograph, Piercing the Darkness, was published by Brilliant Press in 2016. It earned the 2016 Lucy Awards first place in the non-professional monograph category. I have to say that Susan gave herself a decade to complete that book, and it was not too little and it was not too much. It was just the right amount of time to make the work sing. It's a beautiful book. She's got a couple copies here, so make sure you take a look. Her solo exhibitions include Fototeca Nacional de Mexico, Pachuca, Blue Sky Gallery, Oregon, University of the Arts, Philadelphia, Silver Eye Center for Photography in Pennsylvania, and Hampshire College in Massachusetts. Her work is included in the collections of the Center for Creative Photography, the Museum of Fine Arts, Houston, Johnson & Johnson, Lehigh University, Portland Museum of Art, and the Southeast Museum of Photography, among others. So please help me welcome Susan Bank to our lecture series.
I'm going to stand up for a moment. Thank you, Jamie, for introducing me. And I am very honored to have this invitation. And I appreciate your coming tonight. It's a very historic night when Obama is giving his farewell address in Chicago. I know some of you are taping that. It's quite a competition. A couple of things about me which Jamie did not mention. I don't own a digital camera, and my favorite books are family photograph albums. You know, there are other things that could be said, but those probably distinguish me from some others. But first of all, I'd like to take your photograph. Yeah. I'd like a memento from this evening. Yeah. And if you could, when I snap your picture, if you could say Fidel. Well, I'm thrilled that that works. I have quite a collection from Havana of paper mache cameras and metal cameras, and you know, and this is one of my favorites. I took. I'm going to talk somewhat about street photography. I'm also going to try to weave in the process of bookmaking. I really like the process of bookmaking, mainly because it's a collaboration among so many people. And okay. I don't prepare a speech, so I might have some lapses, so please bear with me with my lapses. I've edited work from both Havana and also from El Campo. As you can see up here, I went to Cuba more than 25 times between 1999 and 2009. And I'm extremely proud that in that process, my film was never X-rayed at Jose Marti Airport. Never. It was quite a fight, but I made it. Oh, I wanted to ask, how many people have been to Cuba or about to go to Cuba, have photographed in Cuba? Oh, that's a good amount. That's a good amount. Okay. All right. This is a quote that I took from Marquez in my Piercing the Darkness book. The Piercing the Darkness book is my Havana monograph. Very reluctant to do that. It's very risky. There are so many wonderful monographs from Havana, and they continue to be published almost weekly. But I liked what I cobbled together some words from Marquez. You can't eat hope. You can't eat it, but it sustains you. Marquez was very close to Fidel. Yeah, I've probably said this before. In the interlude to Piercing the Darkness, I wrote, "To dare to interpret this tropical garden is a risky game. Photographers have come and gone before me, and others will follow, chasing butterflies." Yeah. This work by Walker Evans, Havana, 1933, probably was my inspiration to go to Cuba in the first place. I knew nothing about Cuba, only Walker Evans' book. And when I went to Havana, I talk about this in the introduction to my Piercing the Darkness. I went looking for this man in the white suit. And of course he didn't exist. He no longer exists. You know, the man in the white suit now is a, he's sort of a joke. He is a little short guy. He wears a yellow polyester stained suit, smokes a cigar, and wanders around Havana and, you know, wanting people to take his picture. I particularly like this because this is a man, a very elegant man, staring out in time. This might be a strange picture to start a slideshow with, but I use this usually to start out a show on my Havana work to make a point that you never know what you're going to see, and you always need to be prepared, very flexible and open. You know, it's a wonderful place for the unexpected and the unpredictable. I don't even know what this is, and I can't remember where I took this picture, but I had a lot of problems giving this photograph a title. And this is one of the things, you know, you have to do when you make a book, usually. I mean, usually pictures have titles, not always. But I used a title that is so archaic. I called it Wastrel. And, you know, because nothing came to me. You know, a wastrel is like a castaway, and it's so archaic. And if anybody here can think of a better title for this picture, I would like to know it. I'm sure it conjures up something. This is a woman whom I photographed a lot, and I particularly like this image because I'm shooting directly into the sun. I do that quite a bit. I'm not going to talk about each picture. If you have a question, I don't mind being interrupted. This is one of my favorites, called White Feather. I wish I knew what she was wishing for. I can guess. Cuba is very multi-layered. And when I did the edit, I tried to select as many metaphors as possible with multi-layers. This is more than a laundry picture. I call this one Guardian. There's somebody in the audience here, Azita, who Panabor, who was with me in my first class in Havana, which we took with David Allen Harvey. And as Azita put it so well, how many photographs can you take of people standing in doorways and behind grates? But I particularly like this one. So, yeah. Virginia and Granny's dolls. Yeah, she's particularly interesting. She has a collection of 200 of her grandmother's dolls. She calls them Granny's dolls from Martinique. I spent a lot of time with Virginia. I believe she's still alive. However, I think she's blind now. Jose's peluqueria. I worked there a lot. The light was incredible. The light bounced off the buildings from across the street. Nobody paid any attention to me. You know, they were very engaged in, you know, personal improvements. Oh yeah, I might want to mention that in the process of working, no matter where, I don't pay money for a picture. What I do instead is bring back photographs to people whom I have photographed over and over again, or I bring them things that I know that they need. I had a request from one guy who wanted a prescription for Viagra. I only did that once. And Nelson, who's the director of the Phototeca, took a liking to a certain kind of salami that I would bring in and Parmesan cheese. So every trip I had to bring salami.
Can you tell us, because we're going to see him in March?
Oh, Nelson?
Yeah, tell us what salami to bring.
Oh, it was a form of sopressata. Yeah, it was a little bit on the sweet side. Yeah. Oh, and he also really loves mustards. Mustard.
Okay.
Yeah, really loves mustard. Yeah. So, but most of the time, what worked for me was a bottle of Havana Club Silver Dry, the cheap kind. The cheap kind, or jewelry, or you know, I used to go loaded to Havana. My suitcases, I had so many suitcases stuffed to the gills. I did find a lot of humor along the way. This woman, she looks like a young girl. She's actually my landlady, and her kids have gone to school, and she watches these videos all day long. Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you laughed. I have a very large series from Jose's peluqueria. I would love to do a series on it. He closed this salon a few years ago, and now he rents it out as a bed and breakfast. This is an example of filling the frame. One of my mentors, Costamannos, is always criticizing me for my tunnel vision and not filling the frame. And I feel that I was successful with this one. Many of my pictures are imperfect. I have two voices behind me. One is Mary Ellen Mark, who says, no matter what, get the picture. Don't worry about anything. Get the picture. And Costa's looking over my other shoulder and saying, get the perfect picture. So this one I called Odalisque. Sometimes titles just come to you, and those are usually the best, your gut reaction, to a picture. I particularly like the tension in this picture. I think this is one of my best metaphors from my Havana work. I've given it a couple of names, Havana Suite, Havana Quintet. I was advised by one of my mentors to call it dogs fucking. Not fucking dogs, but dogs fucking. And that was just too obvious. Too obvious. However, if you get to know Havana, if you get to know Cuba, even though I haven't been there since 2009, this picture speaks to how Cubanos are subjected to suppression, I mean, these dogs are very passive, very passive. Carton of eggs. If you've been to Havana, you've probably often seen a carton of eggs being carted around from place to place, and when eggs are in, they're very popular. And I kept chasing cartons of eggs, and I finally found this on the Malecón. I spent a lot of time on the Malecón. I suppose many people here do, and many have. And yeah, I mean, I didn't frame this well. This is poorly framed, but I still think the picture holds up. Hotel Roosevelt. Yeah, you don't know how many times I went to this place to get the right light. It was extremely difficult. If you have photographed in interiors in Havana, you know how difficult it is to work with almost no light. And this was, I don't know how many times I went there to get this. But I finally got what I wanted, and I don't know if you're familiar. This one is right across the street from the Hotel Astor, what was the Hotel Astor, and each room in the hotel, like the Hotel Roosevelt and the Hotel Astor, is an apartment for one family. Could be several members in that family. And you risk your life trying to get up the stairs. They're not lit. I mean, I did this many times. They're not lit, and the railings are broken. Conversation. You'll see a lot of signs of the United States in Havana. I thought this was particularly humorous. The Cuban flag, her Titanic bag. I took this picture at the CDR offices on Galeano. It's the Committee for the Defense of the Revolution. This place no longer exists. I expect this man participated in the revolution. I can't imagine that he's living anymore. But he's waiting for the phone call. I'm particularly drawn to street cleaners, as in so many places that I photographed and that are in my book, they no longer exist. This is, yeah, the book very quickly became a historical document. That was not my intention, but Los Marinos, the first 2 years in Havana, I visited a lot of neighborhood bars. I took many photographs inside neighborhood bars. I was very comfortable doing that. And it was a good situation because they're open to the outdoors, and so you had good light. And Los Marinos was open 24 hours, and it was a soup kitchen. I happened to be in Havana during one of the celebrations of Carnival. I don't believe they have it regularly. This was in the month of July, and I just loved this woman with such delight over cotton candy. Yeah, this is a beautiful moment. I befriended this woman. She is a newspaper seller. Her son is in jail. She's got a pretty miserable life, but I was really happy to see that she had a guy. And I call this picture "Courting with a Comb." Yeah, this is a funny one. I had a friend say, "Oh, Susan, even brides in Havana are miserable." And I paired these two. They're paired in the book, but in this presentation I paired them too. I love the irony in this photograph. Dinora under the umbrella of Hollywood. I don't think she knows what Hollywood is. She might dream of something like Hollywood. And this traveler here probably is wearing his best outfit, which is very, in Havana, people make a point to wear their best clothes on the street. Their presentation on the street is very important to them. I would like to know where this man went. And this is sort of funny. It looks like a diorama to me. I visited a place that a lot of people don't go to work, because it's very difficult to get to. It's Lennon Park. And do you know Lennon Park?
I know where it is, yeah. I know where it is.
Yeah, it's hard to get to. It's hard to get to. You have to engage somebody to take you there and wait for you there. But it's the playground for habaneros on weekends. That's where everybody goes. I mean, they have amazing dancing with wonderful bands. They have a rodeo. It's a carousel, and I happen to like this one because the habaneros are getting the fresh air on a Sunday, and they're giving their car engine fresh air as well. It's a Sunday airing. Yeah. Often habaneros party in their own home. There's sort of a myth that Havana is a party place for habaneros. It's actually not the case. They can't afford to go to a place, and most of the time they live it up in their homes. And this was a particular family whom I visited quite a bit. The light was terrible. I got lucky with the light. Yeah, I was particularly attached to this family because the mother was a street cleaner, Rosa. She was a street cleaner, and her sons, who seemed perfectly healthy, were drug dealers. That's how they made their money, which is very dangerous in Cuba to do. Yeah, limbo. I call this one the chariot of death. One of my landlords was a grave digger, and I would go with him early in the morning to the Colon, and he would show me places that I might not really find on my own, and this is called a hueso. And I was very lucky because I'd never seen a bici taxi inside this hueso. And this is the last image I'm going to show you of my Havana work. I think it speaks for itself.
Susan, before you move on from Havana, can you just talk a little bit about how long you would spend at a time in the city and what neighborhoods you would stay in? Where did you live
Oh, okay.
in Havana,
Sure.
that type of thing? I'm just curious.
Yeah. I usually, when I took trips to Cuba, they were fairly extended. 3 weeks, 5 weeks. And I moved in and out of Havana. Havana wasn't really my target place. It was like a stepping off place. It was a place to come and rest and when I lived in Havana, I started out in old Havana, which I soon realized was not the place for me as a street photographer. And so eventually I moved to central Havana, but it wasn't very far from the Prado. I lived across from, I lived beyond Galeano. Do you know the major shopping street called Galeano?
Yes.
Yeah, which keeps changing. Yeah, which keeps changing. So I didn't really go deep into central Havana in terms of a place to live because I wanted to be able to walk to what I wanted to photograph. And I did change the way I photographed in Cuba. I used to photograph in the evening or in the afternoon light, partly because the sun sets in the west. And working in Cuba, I changed and began to work very early in the morning. I was out on the streets in Havana by 5 in the morning and, waiting for the first light, and also in the countryside. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I stayed in some real dumps. I mean, real dumps. I would have American friends, photographer friends visit me, and they say, "Susan, what are you doing here?" I said, because, I'm close to what I want to photograph. I just get out of bed and get out there, Yeah. I had some incredible experiences, which I won't go into. All right, I'm going to move on now. Oh, I'm sorry. There was one thing I wanted to read to you from my prologue, which I wrote, The Piercing of the Darkness. It's very short. I wait in shifty shadows for the invisible, where the real slips seamlessly into the surreal, where the mask of a smile is always for sale. And Cubans have nothing to give but their soul in a cup of coffee. Okay, now I'm going to move on. I'm going to quote this. Landing in Havana that elusive, mythical citadel of contradictions and juxtapositions, one feels catapulted back in time to the 1950s. To know Pinar del Rio is to feel gently pulled back another 50 years. Yeah. I went to El Campo. This is the Valley of Vinales. It's not hidden, you know. It's really not off a major route. And I really didn't have any intention to work there because I'd been friends with a lot of photojournalists who said they had to do their tobacco story and they couldn't stand it, but you know, they had to do it because they got paid to do it. And I just expected to spend 1 or 2 days there. And I went to a cockfight and discovered a man there who we kind of locked into each other very immediately. And I knew I had to come back once I met his family. Anyway, Barrio Wahani is really not far from the town of Vinales, you know, which everybody goes to at some point. And I don't really like Vinales. I would go to a dollar store and, you know, buy a lot of toilet paper and water and cooking oil and rags and shampoo for the campesinos, and buy some fruit, maybe some rum, and I was out of there. You know, I really had a hard time with the place. And I think it's probably getting worse. I read recently that lodgings are so difficult that taxi drivers in Vinales are charging $10 a month for you, $10 a night for you to sleep in their taxi. I don't know. It sounds absurd. Anyway, this image that I'm showing first is actually the first image in my book, Cuba, Campo Adentro. This could be the last image also, because what we're doing here is looking towards the two mogotes called Dos Hermanos, two brothers, which lead you into the valley. This was a kind of lucky picture. Again, I shot almost into the sun. I wasn't going to take this picture, and I walked away, and then I came back, and I said, okay, you know, I'll give it a try. And I think it worked. Kind of see a lot of Guillermo. As you can tell, in a picture, I don't show everything. I'd like to tell you a little bit about this woman, Anna. I lived in her farmhouse. It was actually illegal. And I would register in the, oh, can't remember what they're called, campgrounds, campismos, which were set up by Fidel for Cubans for vacationing. I would register there, and then often at 11 at night, one of the campesinos would come by horseback and take all my luggage to Anna's. But I was registered at Dos Campismos, not knowing. I came so often that I didn't realize I was being followed by the local police. I stirred up a fuss because I just kept coming, and I didn't know I was being followed, of course, until the last day that I was in El Campo. In 2009, when I delivered my book to all the families, that was something that was very important for me to do, for them to have this book. And I was almost finished delivering, and a new sheriff drove up on a very fancy motorcycle. I was talking with, the families I had just given the book to. He asked for my passport. Yeah, I don't speak much Spanish, but I could speak enough, to understand what was going on. I think he kept me there for an hour. And I wasn't worried because, I wasn't doing anything that he could possibly object to. Fortunately, the farmer family did not show him that book. I think it might have caused some problems for them. I'm pretty sure it would. Anyway, when I left and went back to Anna's house for the night, I saw her house in the distance. Word travels very quickly in El Campo. She had her shutters closed, right? And she dragged me in, and we found out that the sheriff on his new motorbike visited every house in Barrio Wahani asking about me. So, I didn't really have any problems, but I tend, especially in the streets of Havana, I used to take too many pictures and hang around. And a lot of times the police would ask, tell me I was forbidden to take pictures, which was actually not the truth. But, I was an easy target because I just kept hanging around. I don't especially advise that, but Tia and Chichi, I worked with about 12 families in this barrio. They were all related, either by blood or marriage ties. Consequently, some of the people had some developmental problems because of this inbreeding. Yeah. Maria was kind of unusual. Really blonde kid with very blue eyes, And she was very popular. I think at this point she was about 4 or 5, and she would wander everywhere, all through the valley. We don't do that now, right? We don't let our kids wander. She'd just go from house to house, and eventually get home when it was dark. Yes?
What are they doing to that pig?
Excuse me?
What are they doing to the pig?
Oh, we're going to have a pig roast, and Chichi is poured, he's already cut the throat of the pig, and he's boiled water, scalding water, which he's poured over the pig's skin, and he's going to shave the pig. Yeah, fortunately in this picture, we missed the sound. We might have brought this up a little more, but the fact that Amarillo was holding a toy gun attracted me to take this picture. The boy on the rope. This picture caused quite a fuss when I showed it at an exhibition at the Phototeca in Havana. I think it was 2004. My project wasn't completed, but Habaneros who came to the exhibition said, "I told you so. They tie them up. They tie the kids up." Which is actually not the case. It's not the case, but this just reinforced the myth that they had. A lot of us, what we choose to photograph, what we choose to keep in our edit, has a lot to do with our own DNA. And this picture, I made this picture because at the time it brought up a memory for me. My mother used to tie my sister and me to the clothesline. Yeah, Tobacco Birdman. Yeah. This is an unusual moment in a machista culture. You don't see this very often. I should probably tell you that most of the bohíos and the buildings that you're seeing no longer exist. Almost everything was destroyed in 2008 in 2 hurricanes that blew in back-to-back, Gustav and Ike, in the fall of 2008. It was interesting to me that the campesinos had not been photographed before, unless it might have been a school picture. And eventually, they ignored me, but still, they are aware that they're being photographed, and many of the photographs that I have of them appear very sculptural. I'm always interested in relationships. This is called luck. Luck. I was focusing on the turkeys inside the house and suddenly saw there was a horse outside the window. I had to work really quickly, and I took a reading from the outside and the inside and split them down the middle, and I had a very small space in which to get this picture. I was squatting. I can no longer squat. This was taken, I think, at 1/4 of a second. Yeah. And none of us seem to know which is the reality in this picture. Is it inside or outside? I think this is one of my favorite photographs from this series.
Is it a medical examination?
He's a curandero. He's a farmer. He's a farmer, but, and there's a clinic in this barrio, but the farmers don't go to the clinic. They go to Manuel, who's a farmer. And they do call him El Medico. He gives the same diagnosis to everybody. You know? It's either gastritis or stress. You know, gastritis or stress. You know, they smoke raw tobacco regularly. They drink coffee from their own beans. It's extremely strong. And by the end of the day, you know, I am really, you know, I had to take Rolaids or something for my gastritis from so much coffee. You cannot refuse a cup of coffee. You cannot turn anyone down. I attended many cockfights, but I wasn't particularly interested in the cockfight itself. This is, you know, Mariel and Mark also subscribe to this, you know, keep away from the main event, circle around the outside of the event. And in this particular case, it worked very well. Cockfights are actually legal in Cuba. What's not legal is to gamble. I had never taken photographs of animals before, except my dogs and cats. I wasn't familiar with animals, with farm animals, and I discussed this with my artist daughter. I said, I'm having a really hard time with animals. And she said, you just got to go out there and do it and practice and practice and practice. And, you know, eventually I got more comfortable with animals. Yeah. Anna was very fortunate. She had a tanka. Everybody else had to go to the well with their water barrels and oxen, the pozo, which was, I really enjoyed doing that. But Anna was a step up. She actually had a tanka. I like the scale of this, the little wheels on the cart, the small oxen. This is my obligatory laundry picture from El Campo. And I'm going to end this with the 5 chairs. This is the last picture in the book. It was actually a mistake. I found out I had an extra page in the book, and the fellow, my printing partner, printed this picture in error, and I'm so glad he did. It's called simply 5 chairs. There's, you know, and as photographers, you know that there's a story, or many stories, from each of these chairs. And these stories will continue. Thank you. Yeah, want me to leave that up?
Hi, Susan.
Yeah, hi.
Thank you for the exhibition. It's incredible, this slideshow.
Thank
Quick question. What brought you to Cuba? What was your interest,
you.
particularly
Can
in
you
Cuba?
speak into the mic?
Oh,
I forgot to bring my hearing aids.
okay. I was interested in what brought you to Cuba, specifically Cuba.
What brought me to Cuba?
Yes.
You know, that's a good question. I had done a lot of photographing in Mexico, not seriously. And you know, there wasn't a really good reason, because I didn't know much about Cuba. A friend of mine said they have a wonderful film school. She had been. I was challenged by the fact that it was hard to get there. And I applied for a license in 1998. I was rejected, of course. Went through the whole process. And then the door opened, because in 1999, the main photo workshops were having their first workshop in Havana. And my friend Zita is up there. Yeah, she was in that workshop with me. Yeah, yeah. So, you know, I don't, and then of course I was really drawn to Walker Evans' photography. But I don't believe I had a burning passion to go. Yes?
Do you remember the moment when you first fell in love with Cuba? You know, what was that? What was the first moment that you fell in love with Cuba? Because you said
When I fell in love with Cuba?
with it, yes, with the project, through the
When I got
process.
suckered in?
Yes.
Oh. That's a hard question to answer. It was so long ago. And now I'm so jaded, you know. When did I first fall in love with Cuba? Does anybody know? I don't hear. Who knows me? Lynn, do you know when I first fell in love with Cuba?
Probably El Campo. It was a little bit between.
It was probably, yeah, in 2002 when I went to El Campo for the first time. Yeah. And of course, I love Cuban music. Yeah. I have a very large collection of Cuban music. I don't know if it's still true, but when I was going, you could go to a museum or a store that sold CDs, and you could play them. And if you liked it, you know, you bought it, which is not true in the United States. So I amassed quite a collection, and I did experience one stunning night at a club that used to be very good. I was invited to sing on the stage with, her name eludes me. She was known as the singer of feelings. Oh, Elena Berkey. Yeah, she invited me up on the stage to sing with her. She was a wonderful singer. She died poor. She never made any money. Yeah.
Your work is beautiful. You talk about doing street photography, and it seems as though you really get to know your subjects personally. Do you always do this? Do you always, like, before you start photographing, do you get to know people, or do you sometimes start by photographing, and are people okay if you just photograph them?
I want to answer this, try to, you know, give you the answer you're looking for. You know, as I said, I speak very little Spanish, which is actually a plus, because I can get very chatty, and if I was a Spanish speaker, I'd probably not be taking photographs. I'd just be chatting away. You know, when you first start out and you don't know anybody, you, or at least I get a sense if the person is okay with me taking their photograph. I don't usually go up and ask someone permission, but you could tell. And if you can tell that they really don't want you to take your photograph, you just move right on. You don't try to negotiate or something. Or I don't. I don't do that. And yes, you're right. I did build up some very good relationships, especially in El Campo, but also in Havana too. I tend to go over the same steps again and again and again. I don't know how many other people do that, but that's what I do. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Peggy? Yeah.
Two questions. One, what lens do you use? It's
You got to
almost
speak
three-
louder, please.
Okay, I'll do it. You should. So the first question is, what lens do you use?
Oh, what lens?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And why does it look three-dimensional to me?
Well, you know, if I'm lucky and get a good depth of field. I shoot with a Leica M6, and I use a 28 lens, which is probably a difficult lens to work with, but I like the 28 because I can get in close. Yeah, I like the 28 for that. Yeah, I don't. I don't, I have a 35 lens. I don't usually switch to it. Yeah, yeah, I'm really happy with that camera. And, you know, I learned how to pre-focus it, so, you know, I can get a lot of images, you know. Because I'm not very good at focusing. My eyes are bad, my glasses are always dirty. I shoot out of the wrong eye. You know, this eye should be open to the periphery, and it's not. It's closed. Yeah.
You mentioned Constantin Manos and you mentioned Mary Ellen Mark. Did you learn anything significant from Graciela Iturbide? I'm just
Did I
curious.
learn-
From Graciela Iturbide?
Graciela? No, not much. I'll tell you why. Because she partnered up Lynn in the back and firm with me because she took that class with me. It was really Mary Ellen's class. Yeah, Mary Ellen, if you knew her, you know, very strong woman, okay? And no way could Graciela be a partner with Mary Ellen Mark. And also, Graciela did show her work. She talked about her work. At that point, she spoke very, very little English, so we had an interpreter. Yeah, I mean, but, you know, I'm very familiar with her work, and I admire her work so much.
How about
Good question.
David Allen Harvey, just to round out the quartet of mentors?
Yeah, I heard he's going back to Cuba in February. He was not allowed to go back to Cuba. I didn't realize this because some of the text in his Cuba book. Well, I'll tell you, what, David Harvey is a very fun guy, right? He loves to party, and he loves women. And what we learned was, with him, was not, this was 1999, was not to talk politics with anybody. And then we learned something that was so invaluable. We learned about nightlife in Havana. And he would take us places, and after a certain point he'd say, okay, we've gone pretty far down now. Would you like to go further down? I think he did teach people, I don't use a flash, but I think he did, one thing he did teach was to put a green or brown bottle in front of your flash and take your picture through that glass.
All right. Thank you so much, Susan. Thanks
Oh,
for
I
great
enjoyed
lecture.
it, yeah. Thank you.